Today, we are diving into a book that has been a game changer for entrepreneurs around the world, The Lean Startup. How today's entrepreneurs use continuous innovation to create radically successful businesses by Eric Ries. If you ever dreamed of launching a startup or wondered why some companies skyrocket while others crash and burn, this episode is for you. Let's set the scene. We are living in an era of unprecedented entrepreneurial energy. It feels like everyone has a big idea, a killer product, or a dream team ready to take on the world. But here is a harsh reality: most startups fail. And it's not because they lack a great product, a brilliant team, or even the groundbreaking idea. Nope. The truth is, even with all these pieces in place, startups can still flop. Why? Well, imagine this: you got an amazing product, but your marketing strategy is totally off. Or maybe you nail the marketing, but you blow your cash on blind expansion. Or worse, you are a Kodak. Yes, Kodak, a company that was once household name but could not adapt a digital revolution and eventually went bankrupt. So what's the secret sauce? How do you build a startup that not only survives but thrives in this chaotic, unpredictable market? So here is a kicker. It's not just having a great idea, the perfect team, or most funding. It's about scientific management practices. That's right. Entrepreneurship isn't just about gut feelings and wild risks. It's about building a system and let you test, learn, and adapt quickly. But here is where things get tricky. Some entrepreneurs look at big established companies and think, hey, let's copy their playbook. Bad move. Why? Because traditional companies operate in a stable, predictable markets, and startups, they're in a wild west, chaotic, uncertain, and full of surprises. What works for a Fortune 500 company could strangle a startup with bureaucracy and kill its creativity. On the flip side, some entrepreneurs throw all the rules out of the window and just wing it. Spoiler alert, that doesn't work either. So, what is the solution? Enter the Lean Startup. This book introduces a revolutionary approach to entrepreneurship. Instead of spending years perfecting a product, Eric Ries says, build a minimum viable product. Get it out of there and test it with real customers and learn fast. This process is called validating learning. Helps you figure out what works and what doesn't without burning through all your cash. And guess what? This method isn't just theoretical. It has been tested, proved, and celebrated by media giants like the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and Harvard Business Review. Now, let's talk about the man behind the method, Eric Ries. He's not just an author, he's a doer, and he's a co founder and CTO of IMVW. He built a massively successful company using lean startup principles. He's also an entrepreneur in residence at Harvard Business School and has advised countless startups, big companies, and venture capital firms. In short, he knows what he's talking about. So, if you are ready to learn about how to build a startup that can adapt, innovate, and success in today's crazy market, stick around. We are about to unlock the secrets of lean startup. All right, let's get into the heart of Lean Startup. What exactly is Lean Startup and why it's such a big deal? Well, to understand this, we need to take a quick trip to Japan. Yes, Japan. Back in the day, Toyota revolutionized manufacturing with something called lean production. Engineers Taichi Ohno and Shigeo Shingo, sorry for butchering their names, came up with the idea to minimize the waste by producing smaller batches in real time, aiming for zero inventory. The goal is make production faster, smarter, and more efficient. Now, fast forward to today, Eric Reyes took the same concept of lean and applied it to startups. But here is a twist. Startups are in factories. They're not building cars or widgets. They're building ideas. And that's where the magic of lean startup comes in. So, what exactly a lean startup is? Reyes defines it like this. A startup is an institution, yes, any institution that is creating new products or services under conditions of extremely uncertainty. That means it's not just the two guys in a garage, sorry, Steve Jobs. It's about anyone trying to innovate in a chaotic, unpredictable environment. The core mission of the startup turns ideas into products, measure how customers respond, and then learn where to pivot or preserve. Sounds simple, right? But here is a catch. Startups don't operate in a control lab. They are out in the wild, where customers are unpredictable, market shifts overnight, even the best laid plans can fall apart. Reyes has a great analogy for this. He is saying that starting a business is like a driving a car. not launching a rocket. When you launch a rocket, every move has to be perfect. One wrong calculation and boom, your rocket is off course. But driving, it's different. You don't need a detailed plan for every turn or brake. You just need to know your destination and adjust as you go. That's exactly how entrepreneurs should think. Instead of creating a rigid, overly detailed business plan, they need to stay flexible, adapt to the road contributions, and make constant adjustments. And that's where build, measure, learn feedback loop comes in. So, the build, measure, learn loop is the backbone of the lean startup model and how it works. First one, build. Turn your idea into product. A simple, bare bones version called minimum viable product (MVP). Second one, measure. Get it out there. Collect feedback and gather data from real customers. Third one, learn. Use that feedback to figure out what's working and what's not, and whether you need to pivot or keep going. This loop isn't just a one time thing, it's a continuous cycle of innovation. Engineers use customers' feedback to improve product, managers analyze data to redefine strategies, but key to success is speed. The faster you can complete this loop, the more you learn, the less you waste, and closer you get to the product and the customers you actually want. Now, let's start about something Ries called validating learning. This is where things get really interesting. Imagine you are running a startup and after a year you got no revenue, no customer and no progress. If you go to your investors and say, "Hey, we did not achieve anything, but we learned a lot." Well, let's just say they're not going to be thrilled. Here is a problem. Learning from failure is important, but it is not enough. You can't take lessons learned to the bank. That's why Ries redefines learning as validated learning. It's not just about failing and reflecting, it's about making clear hypotheses, testing them with real data, and using those insights to build sustainable business. Think about validated learning as scientific method for startups. It's about making predictions, running experiments, and using ephemeral evidence to guide your decisions. This approach help startup cut through noise and uncertainty and focus on what really matters, creating value for customers. And here is the best part. Validated learning isn't just fancy buzzword. It's the practical tool that helps startups avoid wasting time, money and resources on ideas that doesn't work. It's about staying agile, staying focused and staying alive in the competitive market. So to wrap it up, the lean startup model is about applying the principle of lean production to entrepreneurship. It's about building fast, measuring smart, and learning constantly. The build, measure, learn feedback loop is the engine that drives this process, and validated learning is a fuel that keeps it running. So, if you are an entrepreneur, this is a playbook for navigating uncertainty and avoiding the waste and building something truly matters. Next up, we will dive into how to create MVP, minimum viable product, and why it's a secret weapon of successful startup. So, let's dive into MVP. Every startup begins with a plan, and every plan is built on assumptions. But here is the thing, assumptions can go wrong, and if your assumptions are wrong, your entire business could be built on shaky ground. That's why lean startup method focus on validating two critical hypotheses, the value hypothesis and the growth hypothesis. First one is the value hypothesis. This is the all about answering one question. Does your product actually solve the problem for your customers? Sounds simple, right? But here is the way things get tricky. Entrepreneurs often think they know that what customers want, but they are wrong. Take this example from a book. An online education platform noticed that students were leaving comments and interacting on their course pages. The company thought, hey, students must want to socialize well in their lab. So they added social features that let students connect as friends. Guess what? Almost no one used it. Why? Because companies misunderstood what customers need. Students does not want to socialize, they just wanted to learn. That's why validating your value hypothesis is so important. You need to make sure your product actually delivers a value before you pour money and time into it. Now, let's talk about growth hypothesis. This is where you test whether your product can attract more and more users over time. A lot of entrepreneurs think if I build a great product, customers will come. But that's a wishful thinking. You need to prove that your product can grow. A great example of this is Facebook. In its early days, Facebook did not just validate its value hypothesis. Users loved it and kept coming back. It also validated its growth hypothesis. Within a month of launching at Harvard, 75% of undergraduates were using it without a single dollar spent on marketing. That kind of growth is what gets investors excited. So, how do you validate this hypothesis? Enter minimum viable product (MVP). This is lean startup secret weapon. An MVP is the simplest version of your product that you can build to test your ideas. It's not perfect, it's not pretty, but it is enough to get feedback from real customers. Let's look at Groupon, one of the fastest growing companies in history. When they started, they did not have fancy website or polished app. They used a simple blog to sell t-shirts. If you wanted a different color or size, they had to mail the team. It was scrappy, but it worked. That MVP proved that concept and paved the way to billion-dollar success. Now, I know what you are thinking. What if someone steals my idea? Here is the truth: ideas are cheap. Execution is everything. The market is constantly changing and customers need to evolve. The only way to stay ahead of your MVP out there is to learn fast and iterate faster than anyone else. But here is a catch: MVP can also lead to negative results. When Eric Reyes launched a MVP for his company IMVU, the initial revenue was just 300 a month. After months of hard work, it only went up to 500 and investors started losing faith and team faced confidence crisis. So how do you survive when MVP flops? That's when innovation accounting comes in. Innovation accounting is a systematic measure to progress and decide whether to pivot, and that means change the direction or preserve. It starts with establishing a baseline using your MVP. This gives the initial data like conversion rates and sign up rates. Next time you tune the engine. This means making a gradual improvements to your product and tracking how those changes affect your metrics. A great way to do this is to cohort analysis. Instead of looking at overall numbers, your group of customers by version of the product they used. This helps you see whether your improvements are actually making a difference. For example, if your sign up rate jumps from 20% to 45% after an update, you pay the rate stays at 2% and you know the customers like the product but aren't willing to pay for it yet. That's a valuable insight for your next round of improvements. But what if all this effort, your product is still not meeting expectation? That's when you face the big decision: pivot or preserve. Pivoting is scary. It means admitting that your current strategy isn't working and try something completely new. But it can also be key to survival. Take Path for example. The startup has launched an MVP that has flopped. But instead of giving up, they listened to customers' feedback, pivoted to become intimate social network with a 50 friend limit and became a huge hit. To make pivoting less daunting, Ray suggests that holding regular pivot or preserve meetings, bring in your team, your leadership, and even external consultants to assess your progress and decide on next steps. So, to recap, startups need to validate their value hypothesis and growth hypothesis early on. Build an MVP to test your ideas, use innovative accounting to measure progress, and ready to pivot if needed. This is how you achieve early success with the lean startup method. Now, let's go to the next chapter. Alright, let's talk about scaling your startup now. You got your early traction, your MVP is working, and the customers are loving your product. Now what? How do you go from a small, scrappy startup to rapidly growing business? Well, it all comes down to speed, efficiency, and smart growth strategies. And today, we are diving into three ideas from lean startup that will help you scale like a pro: small batches, engines of growth, and five whys method. Let's start with quick thought experiment. Imagine you have stuffed 100 letters into envelopes. Each envelope needs to be addressed, stamped, filled and sealed. You have two options. Option A: fold all 100 letters, then stuff all the 100 envelopes, then stamp all 100 envelopes. Option 2: fold one letter, stuff it into envelope, address it, stamp it and seal it. Then repeat 99 more times. Which method do you think faster? If you guessed option A, you're not alone. Most people think batching makes tasks more efficient, but here is a twist. Option B is actually faster. Why? Because if something goes wrong, like you mess up addresses, you can catch it on early. With option A, you did have to open all the 100 envelopes to fix a mistake. Option B, you can fix it on the spot. This is the power of small batches. In the startup terms, the batch size is the number of tasks you completed before moving to the next stage. Large batches might seem efficient, but they are risky. If you build 100 features, then realize customers don't want them, what if you find the major flaw at the last minute? Small batches, on the other hand, let you test, learn, and adapt quickly. You build one feature, test it, and improve it before moving on to the next. This approach reduces waste, speed up development, and helps you validate learning faster. So, if you want to scale up your startup, think small, build, measure, learn, one step at a time. Now, let's talk about the engine of growth. These are the mechanisms that drive sustainable growth for your startup. According to Eric Ries, there are three main engines. First one, the sticky engine. This is called about retention. You attract customers and keep them coming back. Think of businesses like subscription services or online marketplaces. For example, an anime collectibles trading platform needs to keep hardcore fans coming back to trade. If they lose customers faster than they gain new ones, growth stalls. Second one, the viral engine. This is how your product spread like a virus. Every user brings in more users. A classic example is Hotmail. By adding PS, get your free mail at Hotmail to every outgoing email. They grew to 12 million users in 18 months and sold to Microsoft for $400 million. Third one, the paid engine. This is about monetization. You grow by increasing revenue per customer or reducing the cost of acquiring new customers. Take IMVU for example. They found creative ways to let customers pay, like billing to their mobile phones, which helped them to monetize users which normally would not pay online. So here is the thing, you don't need to use all the three engines at once. In fact, trying to do so can spread you too thin instead. Instead, focus on engine that best fit for your business model. Build it, optimize it, and let it drive your growth. As your startup grows, you'll need systems to keep things running smoothly. But beware of your over construction. Building too much bureaucracy too fast, this can slow you down and kill your startup agility. So, how do you stay lean while scaling? Enter 5 whys method. The 5 whys is a problem solving tool from Toyota. When something goes wrong, you ask why 5 times to get the root cause, for example. So, first one, why did the machine stop? Because the fuse blew. Number two, why did the fuse blew? Because the motor overheated. Number three, why the motor overheated? Because it wasn't lubricated. Number four, why wasn't it lubricated? Because the pump failed. Number five, why did the pump fail? Because it wasn't maintained. By fixing the root cause, poor maintenance, you prevent the problem from happening again. In the startups, the 5 whys can help you build a adaptive organization. Instead of adding layers of management and bureaucracy, you solve problems at their source. This keeps the team agile and focused on what really matters. But here is a key. The 5 whys should never become 5 blames. This is about pointing fingers and isn't about pointing fingers. It's about finding solutions. So to recap, use small batches to build, test, learn quickly, focus on engine of growth to drive sustainable expansion, and use 5 whys to solve problems to stay agile as you scale. These tools are what you need to take your startup from early traction to rapid growth. As we come to the end of this book, let's have the key takeaways from the lean startup. All right, we got covered a lot of ground today. So let's wrap it up from the key takeaways from the lean startup. Whether you are an entrepreneur, a team leader, or just someone who loves learning about innovation, these lessons are gold. Here is a big idea. Startups operate in a world of extremely uncertainty. The old rules of business don't always apply. So how do you succeed in this chaotic environment? Eric Reyes gives us roadmap and it all about starts about lean startup model. So, part one, the lean startup model. At its core, the lean startup is about scientific management. It's not just about guessing or following your gut, it's about testing, learning, and adapting. The heart of this model is build, measure, learn loop, feedback loop. So, here is how it works. First one, build. Create a simple version of your product and MVP. Second one, measure. Test it with the real customers and gather data. Third one, learn. Use the data to decide whether to pivot, change the direction, or preserve. Keep going. This loop helps you achieve validated learning, real actionable insights that guide your decision and helps you avoid wasting time and resources. Part 2, validating your hypothesis. Before you scale, you need to validate two critical hypotheses. Number one is the value hypothesis. Does your product actually solve a problem for your customers? Number two, the growth hypothesis. Can your product attract and retain more customers and users over time? To test this, you need to start an MVP, a minimum viable product. It's not the perfect, but it's enough to get feedback. Use tools like cohort analysis to track progress and make data driven decisions. And when the data tells you it's time to change course, don't be afraid to pivot. Part 3, scaling smart. Once you found market fit product, it's time to grow. But scaling doesn't mean throwing everything at the wall and hoping it sticks. Here is how to do it right. Number one, small batches. Build, test, and improve in small increments. This helps you catch problems early and avoid costly mistakes. Number two, engines of growth. Focus on one of the three growth strategies. Number one, sticky engine. Retain customers and keep them coming back. Number two, viral engine. Let your product spread organically like a virus. Number three, paid engine. Optimize your monetization strategy to fuel growth. And as you grow, use 5 whys method to solve the problems at their root. This keeps your organization agile and avoid the trap of overconstruction, building too much bureaucracy too fast. So here is a bottom line. The lean startup isn't just about book for entrepreneurs. It's a mindset. It's about embracing uncertainty, learning fast and adapting quickly. Whether you are building a business, launching a new product or just trying to navigate life, these principles can help you succeed. So what's next? If you already haven't grabbed a copy of Lean Startup Eric Ries, it's packed with insight stories and practical advice that can change the way you think about innovation. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment and also share it with your friend who might need it. Thank you very much for watching this video till the end.